Hello and good day to you all. Thank you for joining me in the fight against the lack of common knowledge. In this video about France, we will take a brief look at the political system in France as it is in place today. So let's start with the most basic facts. France is a democracy. Maybe it is best if I explain the map you can see shortly so you can understand it. Basically, the greener the country, the more democratic it is. And the darker the red, the more autocratic is the country according to the democracy index of The Economist. But be warned, those indices are just a guideline. To really understand them and to make reliable statements, one needs to have a look at the data and how it is gathered. But enough of that and back to France. As I've already said, and as you can clearly see, France is a democracy. And as I mentioned in previous videos about France, part of the European Union. In fact, one of the EU's founding nations. Today's political system in France is determined by the constitution of the Fifth Republic. As the name of the constitution might have already told you, France is a republic, meaning there's no king. For many, that might seem obvious in today's world. But there are still a lot of non-republican monarchist or constitutional monarchist states in Europe. Usually the king's or queen's powers are just formal and or representative. Some examples are the UK, Belgium, Luxembourg, Denmark, Monaco, Andorra, Norway, Liechtenstein, Sweden, the Netherlands and Spain. But back to France. France has an independent executive, legislative and judicative power. Let's start off with the executive power. The executive power is shared between the president, today Emmanuel Macron, and the government. The president is directly elected by the people for a term of 5 years. The president's role in French politics is quite strong. He can nominate the prime minister, is the commander-in-chief of the French army, and he can disband the National Assembly. In the field of foreign and security policy, the French president has a very powerful position. The second part of the executive power is the government, with the prime minister as its head. Today, Jean Castex is the prime minister of France. The main body of the French government is the Council of Ministers. Overall, and if you compare it to other democracies, the executive power in France is quite strong. The legislative is also split in two, meaning France has a two-chamber system. There is the already mentioned Assemblée Nationale, which is elected directly by the people, and the Senate, which is elected indirectly. The Assemblée Nationale is the more powerful chamber. The legislative's job is to control the government and produce new laws, while the French president is elected directly and has to at least gain 50% of the votes, 50% plus 1 that is, to be elected, meaning the absolute majority. The members of the parliament are elected in a two-step majority election. And the Senate is elected indirectly through an electoral assembly. The next orderly elections for president and parliament will take place in 2022. The political part of the French judicative is the Conseil constitutionnel, which decides whether a law is in order with the constitution or not. The second branch of the judicative, yes, the judicative also has a second branch, is the Conseil d'État, which basically functions as a consulting instrument in law questions for the government. Okay, that's the very, very rough shape of the French political system. Since this is very theoretical and maybe abstract, I wouldn't consider a more in-depth knowledge about the political system of France to be common knowledge. In France, political actors are, as it is usual in democracies, organized in parties. So let's have a look at the 4 biggest of the 12 parties in the French parliament today. The first party we want to have a look at is La République En Marche, which was founded in 2016 by today's president Emmanuel Macron. La République En Marche is a liberal and pro-EU party. In the last election, the party won 308 out of 577 seats. but it has less seats today. The second biggest party is the Républicain, which was founded in 2012. It is a center-right conservative party. Sarkozy, a former president of France, was a member of one of its founder parties. The Républicain won 112 seats in the last election. The third party, the Mouvement Démocrate, was founded in 2007 and is a center-liberal party. It won 42 seats in the last election. The last party we want to have a look at is also the oldest. It was founded in 1996, and the former President Hollande, who was president from 2012 to 2017, was a member of that party. The Democratic Socialist Party won just 30 seats in 2017, which was a loss of 250 seats compared to the election before that. But back to the bigger picture. The traditional structure of the French state is very centralistic. This tradition dates back to the time of absolutism and Ludwig XIV. If you want to learn more about him, check my video about French history. In recent years, power was given back to the local administrations. The biggest entity after the state are the 18, or if you just count mainland France, the 13 regions. And they are split again into 96 départements in mainland France. The smallest and most traditional entities are the communes. Up to this point, we mostly looked at France itself. But when talking about France, it should come to mind that France is a very powerful player on the global stage. France is not just a driving force in the EU, it is also part of the United Nations Security Council and a founding nation of the NATO. As such, France possesses a potent military force with a nuclear arsenal of about 300 warheads, which makes it an important partner in the security policy. Each year, France spends about 2.3% of its GDP for its military, which makes it the country with the fifth largest spending on its military in the world. The Freedom House Index, which checks for political rights and civil liberties, ranks France as a working democracy. In the aspect political rights, France scores 83 out of 40 points, and in the category civil liberties, France scores 52 out of 60 points. Let's now take a look at the three most important people you must know about when talking about French politics. This is just my personal ranking, and it just covers the more recent history. All three of them were presidents. We start off with Jacques Chirac. He was president from 1995 to 2007. He also worked as mayor of Paris and prime minister during his career. He was the founder of a predecessor of one of today's conservative parties. Overall, he was a politician for about 50 years. Jacques Chirac was characterized as adaptable, pragmatic, and not overly ideological. An also very well-known figure was François Mitterrand. He was a politician in the Social Democratic Party and president between 1981 and 1995, just before Jacques Chirac. Mitterrand fought in the Second World War and worked closely together with the Resistance. He is still today viewed very positively in France. One of his greatest achievements was the unification of the left parties in France. During his career, he put several key industries under state control, abolished the death penalty, and introduced a minimum wage to France. The, in my opinion, most famous French politician after the Second World War is Charles de Gaulle. He was a statesman and general in the Second World War. He led the French exile government during the occupation by Nazi Germany and was the president of the provisional government between 1944 and 1946. He also was the founder of the Fifth Republic through the constitutional reform in 1958, as well as the first president of the Fifth Republic. He stayed in office until 1969. Charles de Gaulle is the founding father of the Gaullism, which is a cultural conservative, centralistic, but economically open way of ruling. Another central part of the Gaullism is to protect France's important role on the global stage. The second biggest party in France, you already heard about them, the Republicans, follow this tradition. During the presidency of Charles de Gaulle, France built up their nuclear arsenal and founded the EU. I hope now you got a good first impression about French politics. If you want to expand your common knowledge about France, check out my videos about French history, economy, or geography. Or also check my random facts video if you want. On my channel you will also find a video about the most talked about news and events in 2020 in France. If you enjoy videos like this and you want to see similar videos about other countries soon, leave a like or feel free to comment about what you have seen in the comment section below. If you have any ideas or critique, let me know them and I will try to work on it. Also let me know what country you want me to make a video about next. Click on subscribe to be notified about future uploads. Thanks and see you soon.